Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a debate that, well, it probably starts arguments in pubs everywhere. Who's the greatest batsman ever? Sir Donald Bradman or Sachin Tendulkar?
It really is the classic problem, isn't it? Comparing athletes from completely different times. 70 years apart, the game, the tech, the schedules, everything's different. It seems almost impossible.
Yeah.
But the sources we looked at are great because they go way beyond that surface level chat. They bring in, serious stats, physiological comparisons, even some pretty advanced sports science.
Right. So our mission here is to give you the shortcut through this whole argument. We're not just reading out scorecards.
Definitely not.
We'll hit the numbers, sure, but we really want to unpack the mental side, the pressure, what their bodies actually went through, and some surprising stuff from sports science that might explain their genius. There's this idea called nonlinear learning.
Yeah, where doing things the wrong way, so to speak, can actually lead to amazing results. We'll get into that.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the big one, Bradman stats. That test average of 99.94. You just can't ignore it.
You really can. It's just such an outlier. Every source agrees it's like 40 or 50% better than anyone else in history. It's the statistical Mount Everest.
And he scored over 5,000 runs just against England alone. That's incredible focus.
It is. But context is key here, right? For this deep dive, we have to look closer. He got that average over 20 years, yeah, but only in 52 test matches.
Only 52.
And 37 of those, nearly three-quarters, were against England. So while the record is monumental, it came from a much narrower field of competition than today.
And the playing conditions back then were different too, weren't they?
Exactly. Pitches weren't as consistent, equipment less advanced, sure. But a big factor, often overlooked, is that almost every test match he played had a guaranteed rest day.
A rest day. Mid-match.
Yep, built right in. Compulsory recovery time. That's just unthinkable in the modern game's intensity. It totally changes the physical demands.
Okay, so let's switch gears to Tendulkar, the modern guy. His story is about sheer volume adaptability, playing from 16 to 40 years old.
And racking up over 34,000 international runs, 100 centuries across tests, ODIs, T20. The sheer amount of cricket is staggering. Constant year-round play.
That's a massive career footprint.
And this is where comparing the eras gets really interesting. You mentioned his volume, but think about who he played against. The bowling attacks were global, specialized, lethal.
I remember that quote you mentioned from Shoaib Akhtar.
Yeah, Akhtar said he felt sorry for Sachin because he faced planet Earth's most dangerous bowling attack. And honestly, looking back, he's probably right.
Who are we talking about specifically?
Oh, the list is legendary. Wasim Akram, Waqar Younis, Glenn McGrath, Shane Warne, Ambrose, Stein, Muir-Latheran, consistently year after year. He wasn't just facing one rival team's best. He was up against entire global systems designed to get him out.
And the pressure. The sources really highlighted the difference in mental load.
They really did. Tendulkar had the weight of, over 1 billion people's expectations on him every single match for 24 years. That's relentless.
Whereas Bradman, while obviously under pressure, had some specific moments where it seemed to get to him.
Well, yeah, the Bodyline series is the famous example. His average dropped to, still a great 52, but for him that was a huge dip. And then that last innings, needing just 4 runs for the 100 average and getting out for 0.
Ouch.
Yeah. So the pressure was intense for Bradman, no doubt, but the argument in the sources is that the constant global 247 scrutiny on Tendulkar might have been psychologically just a heavier burden day in, day out.
Okay, so the raw stats point one way, but the context, the opposition, the pressure gets murky. How did the analysis try to quantify these other factors?
Well, this is where that detailed head-to-head comparison comes in. It was really useful. They broke it down into 5 areas: physical, physiological, psychological, skill, and popularity.
Trying to put numbers on the intangibles.
Exactly. Forcing the comparison beyond just that 99.94 average, basically.
And the outcome of that specific analysis. Who came out on top overall?
According to that study, Tendulkar did. He won 3 of the 5 categories.
Okay, interesting. Which ones?
He took physical and physiological. And honestly, this is largely down to playing in the modern era. The advances in sports science, fitness training, nutrition, injury management. Bradman just didn't have access to any of that.
Makes sense. But physiologically, were there specific things beyond just modern medicine? You mentioned Bradman was taller.
He was slightly taller, yeah, but the analysis rated Tendulkar's slightly smaller stature as potentially better for balance and stability, which is, crucial for batting movements. And this was pointed out specifically, Bradman was a smoker.
Really?
Yeah, quite common back then, but seen as a significant physiological negative compared to modern athletes' focus on cardiovascular fitness. Plus, Tendulkar had constant access to biomechanics, physios, the whole support system.
Right. And the third category he won was psychological.
Correct. This is where that relentless pressure we talked about comes back in. He scored higher on things like reaction time, motivation, self-confidence, and crucially, coping with pressure situations.
Why coping specifically? Bradman's concentration for those huge scores must have been immense.
It absolutely was. But the argument was about sustained coping across different formats: constant travel, media glare, immense public expectation. Bradman played fewer games, often with rest days. Tendulkar was constantly switching formats, facing different challenges, often under lights with no let-up for over 2 decades. That ability to perform under constant, varied stress was rated higher.
Okay, so Tendulkar takes physical, physiological, and psychological. Where did Bradman win?
Unsurprisingly, he won skill performance. But it's important to note, this was basically awarded solely on the basis of the 99.94 test average. That number was just seen as overriding everything else in the skill debate.
A bit reductive, maybe, given Tendulkar's adaptability across formats and against all those bowlers.
It is a bit reductive, yeah. And the analysis acknowledges that tension. It just shows how heavily that one statistic weighs. If you value that pure test average above all else, Bradman wins skill. If you value adaptability and performance across all conditions, maybe you'd lean differently.
And the last category, popularity.
Bradman won that too, in overall hero ratings, according to this specific analysis. Which is maybe surprising, given Tendulkar is literally called God in India. But perhaps globally or historically, Bradman's legend had a slight edge in that metric.
Fascinating breakdown. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Let's dive into the science of why they were so good, because it seems to challenge a lot of traditional coaching ideas.
Yeah, this part is cool, because you might assume Bradman especially had some kind of superhuman physical gifts, right? Like amazing eyesight or lightning reflexes.
You would think so, with that average.
But nope. Turns out, scientifically measured, his eyesight was actually defective. He was discharged early from the army because of it, and his reaction times, slightly slower than the average university student.
Get out. Sell.
Technique. But not a coach technique, not in the conventional sense. He developed this unique sort of rotary style, very unorthodox.
Rotary. What did that do?
It gave him amazing balance, allowed for shorter movements to the ball, and generated incredible bat speed right at the point of impact. It was incredibly efficient.
And where did this weird technique come from?
That famous childhood story, hitting a golf ball with a cricket stump against the curved base of a corrugated iron water tank over and over.
Right, the golf ball and the tank. I've heard that.
Well, that set up a small, fast-moving object, an uneven surface, a narrow bat. It created what sports scientists now call a constrained learning environment.
Okay, connect that to the modern theory you mentioned.
Yeah.
Dynamical systems theory. Nonlinear pedagogy. What's the simple version?
The simple idea is this. Everyone's body solves movement problems slightly differently. Traditional coaching often tries to force everyone into one perfect model, ironing out any variations.
Like a textbook technique.
Exactly. But nonlinear pedagogy says that variability isn't noise, it's functional. It's your body finding its best solution. By setting up challenging, constrained tasks like Bradman's golf ball drill, you force the body to self-organize and find its own, often unique, but highly effective way to succeed.
So Bradman wasn't trying to invent a rotary technique. He was just trying to hit the damn golf ball consistently.
Precisely. The task itself, the constraint, guided him to that solution. His body figured it out because the standard methods probably wouldn't have worked as well in that specific difficult setup.
And Tendulkar. His path was different, more coached, but maybe shared some elements.
Well, his practice was incredibly intense. Constant net sessions, yes, but his coach also had him playing sometimes up to 13 games a day across Mumbai as a kid. Think about that constantly changing pitches, bowlers, situations. That sheer volume and variety is its own kind of demanding variable environment.
That's a different kind of constraint, maybe. Constant adaptation.
Could be. And crucially, his coach, Alakar, noticed Tendulkar had this unorthodox, very low grip on the bat handle, but he didn't try to change it. He basically said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
He respected the individual solution.
Exactly. He let Tendulkar keep the technique that obviously worked brilliantly for him, even if it wasn't textbook. So both players, in different ways, benefited from environments that allowed their unique, highly functional styles to develop.
Which really flies in the face of overly rigid coaching, doesn't it? I remember reading Greg Chappell's comments on this.
Yeah, the legendary Aussie cricketer Greg Chappell. He was pretty skeptical about some aspects of modern sports science, especially when it leads to very regimented coaching that tries to make everyone the same.
He had strong words about bowling machines, I think.
He did. He hated them. His argument was that they remove all the crucial visual cues you get from a real bowler: the run-up, the arm action, the wrist position. Batsmen train to hit the ball coming out of the machine, but they don't train their perception to pick up those subtle human cues that are vital for timing against a real person.
So you end up with technically proficient players who might struggle to adapt in a real match.
That was his fear. That you create technically correct players who haven't learned to read the game, read the opponent. It shows that just mimicking the outcome, the ball speed and direction, isn't enough. Practice needs that complexity, that human element, that variability.
So what does this all mean? When we put it all together, Bradman versus Tendulkar.
Look, the comparison really comes down to what you value most, doesn't it? Is it that absolutely mind-blowing, isolated statistical peak from Bradman, achieved in his specific era?
Against fewer opponents, with rest days.
Right. Or is it Tendulkar's incredible adaptability, his sustained elite performance across 3 formats against every great bowler of his generation, under constant global pressure for over 2 decades?
It's almost different definitions of greatness.
It really is.
Yeah.
But the science bit, the interesting part, is that neither of them seem to have relied on just natural talent. It wasn't about being born perfect.
It was about how they practiced.
Yeah. Intense, challenging practice. Practice that often broke the rules, that forced them to find their own unique solutions because of the constraints they faced, whether it was a golf ball in a tank or just the sheer volume and variety of modern cricket.
So the takeaway for you listening is maybe that genius isn't just bestowed, it's forged. It comes from tackling hard problems in unique ways.
Their success wasn't about following the textbook common optimal pattern. It was about finding what worked for them, even if it looked different.
Which leads to a final thought. Bradman's genius came from that unconventional self-made practice setup. If the very best often succeed by breaking the mold, by rejecting the standard way, what common optimal patterns in your own life, maybe your work, your learning, are you sticking to?
What assumptions are you making about the right way to do things?
Could sticking to the script actually be holding back your own potential? What's your equivalent of the golf ball in the water tank waiting for you to discover?